Well, there's a small charge, so if you've got any local punts, you'll be all right. You know, the only film I wouldn't like to be in is an action movie. I mean, I don't really think I've got the head for it. Anyway, come round here. Here it is. Cork, Ireland's largest county and the city with the same name. And you can see the river going through it in a couple of places. It really is an island. And the Romans were never here. I knew you'd like that, but the Vikings were. 820 they arrived, but they were kicked out by the Normans who came along in the 12th century and stayed here for quite a long time. That's that buttery area just down there. Cut away. Yeah, cut back. I think it's supposed to be a little more technical than that, but we'll work on it. You want to ring the bells? Okay. Do you know, if you lived round here, it'd drive you mad, wouldn't it? Hey, get off. I'm playing, not you. Making a racket. Well, that was a campanology start to the programme, wasn't it? For Whom the Bell Tolls. Now, that was a film. What? Anyway, Cove is over there. There are 3 islands in Cork's harbour. That's the Great Island with Cove on it. It's spelt C-O-B-H, but it's pronounced Cove. In 1848, the Great Exodus from Ireland started. It lasted for just over 100 years, and 6 million people emigrated. 2.5 million of them from there, just after the famine. Can you imagine the scene? Women and children wrapped in shawls like this. Pathetic bundle of nothing in front of them that was all they had. Setting out on an awful journey across the... It's got you, that, hasn't it, eh? Yeah. You're right. It would make a good screenplay. I don't know what we could call it, though, but In the Name of the Father. Now, I think that's been done, 1994, and they did The Commitments up in Dublin, and they did The Field, and they did The Quiet Man with John Wayne, and they did My Left Foot. Absolutely, yeah. Well, let's keep an eye out. You never know who we might see. Run it by them. Also from there, the Titanic, that was its last port of call before it set off in 1912, and just out there, the Lusitania was torpedoed. Both of them, of course, went down. The Titanic was made into a film. Yeah, and Lou Grade's bank account went down quicker than the boat, I think. Anyway, there we go. So, what? Well, yeah, I know, all about continuity. I know the film business. It's just that some people might prefer me in red and not blue. So, I know, you never know who's around. I mean, that could have been Quentin. Was it? Or Dickie? Dickie, love. Keep your eyes open. Ready? Mix through to add... Yes, actually, that was quite tasteful. Rather like my shirt, don't you think? Oh. Gunpowder. There's a thought. In fact, have you ever thought about it? Do you know what's in it? No, nor did I till about 3 minutes ago, but it's saltpeter, sulphur, and charcoal, plus some water. And it was brought to this country by a man called Sir Roger Bacon. He was a monk, and he nicked it off the Arabs, I know, and brought it here to England. But in Ireland, just outside Cork, they had this enormous royal gunpowder mill. And during the Napoleonic Wars, they made 25% of Britain's gunpowder here. And each of those walls, yep, they're not the ends of buildings, those are blast walls. So that if a mill had an accident and blew up, the next mill wasn't affected. And there were loads of them all the way down this canal. And in there, you can see the mixing process, how it was done. It's actually an exact replica, because this mill was built in 1794, and it actually all closed down when one man was captured, Napoleon. No Napoleon. No gunpowder. I don't know, you'll have to swim or something. It's your problem. It's a long way to Tipperary. Well, I had to do it. And anyway, it is a long way, but we're here now. There's the plain of Yeah, well, I'm into my blue period. There's the plain of Tipperary, and above it, this fantastic rock, which would benefit greatly from a cutaway. You're getting good at this. Brilliant. St. Patrick's Rock Cashel. And Cashel, of course, means castle. And this one dates back to the 5th century. You're not going to find many buildings anywhere from that period. That particular tower is 12th century, and we've seen towers like it before. That's where you put all your important documents and people, and then if there's any trouble, you just pull up the ladder and don't let anybody in. Now let's run round to the cathedral. It's a bit of a trek, but I know you can do it. Now this place was the seat of the kings of Munster for 500 years. Now the kings of Munster ruled most of Southern Ireland, and the castle flicked between family and family until in 1104 one of the families gave it to the church. Brilliant idea. If you're going to stop the enemy from getting it, you give it to the church, then they can't have it. And they were here until 1647, when along came Oliver Cromwell, and he smashed the place up. In fact, he really did a good job on it. Nicked the bells. There was a siege here, and 3,000 people were murdered. Anyway, it's a grand place, and well worthy of a visit. In fact, it's worthy of a musical sequence. I think you should be putting together some lovely pictures and music. And whilst we're on about films, why am I carrying all this stuff? Hey? You haven't got a best boy or a clapper loader. It's not Ben-Hur, this, is it? Had a line in the film as well. Yeah, it's a fuchsia. You can tell because they're red. Well, fuchsias are red. And stone circles are grey. Like this one down here. 150 years BC, this one dates from. Wasn't that some film with Raquel Welch in? Anyway, it's called Drumbeg Stone Circle, and it means small ridge. And on the 21st of December, the winter solstice, the sunset comes through at exactly the right point and falls on this here stone. I can imagine them laying out some sort of sacrifice. Stretched out there. Kitty the cat, maybe. Well, maybe not, eh? Because I know she's Egyptian and all that. Got special powers, hasn't she? Yeah. Now down here, they've got a cooking pit. You don't find these very often, and they're really interesting. You know, nowadays we go through life with these fantastic cooking appliances. I know, you've just got the one little gas ring, haven't you? Anyway, most of us go through life with these fantastic cooking appliances. But they didn't have those, obviously, back before Christ. So what they did was they built a fire, and then they made a little pond from just off from a stream here. And then they took the stones that they'd put in the fire, and they dropped them into the pond. And in 18 minutes, they could make a pond that big boil. Fantastic! Then they'd put a piece of venison in it and cook it. But what I want to know is, how did they know how long to cook it for? They didn't have watches, did they? Over to the west, and the lovely little seaside town of Kinsale, which has always been important because of its It's my lucky shirt. You know, you remember when I did My Liege, Your Sword? Well, I was wearing this shirt, you see. What? There's a dog behind me? Got me daft. You'll be telling me there's a leprechaun next, a dog on the castle wall. Anyway, the people who built this castle were into frilly shirts because it was built by Charles II, 1680, although he was advised not to build it because the land above it meant that you could fire cannonball down onto the top of it. And 10 years later, that's exactly what happened, because William of Orange came here just after the Battle of Boyne and took the fort. I think it took him about 14 days or something like that. Now, this is interesting over here. Good jump. This is a gunpowder magazine, and the reason you can tell it was that is because of the little ventilation holes to keep the gunpowder dry, and also red brick on the inside. Now, the theory behind that was if it got struck by a cannonball, the red brick would return to a sort of mulchy, sandy type clay material and would actually quash the explosion. Brilliant. Visual explanations as you go. I don't know how you do it. Anyway, up here you can see the inside of the castle, which is star-shaped. It was very much the fashion in those days. And there's the houses that would have had the officers and the officers' wives, and there would have been children playing and all sorts of things. The governor's house is down there. And the English stayed here until 1922. I thought you were going to jump over the edge for a moment. And then after the Anglo-Irish agreement, they withdrew. And the reason it's in a bit of a state at the moment is the old IRA came in after that and burnt it. I guess they were a bit fed up with the English being here. So, let me get this right. You were talking to a leprechaun under an old tree, and he gave you 3 wishes, and you decided to use one of them up, yeah? This is not one of those limerick things, is it? No, no, no. And it's not Romancing the Stone, because, I mean, that was a good movie. It's definitely Sharon Stone. Right. You get to snog Sharon Stone. And he was little, green, silly, funny hat. It wasn't Oliver Stone, no? Right. You know what, mate? You've been had. That's the stone. Go on. Down you go. You know, that leprechaun must have bent over backwards to help you, mate. It's the Blarney Stone. Now, there's all sorts of rumours about it. One is that it's half the stone of Scone. But basically, kissing it makes you eloquent. So this should be interesting. Is that good? So let's put it to the test. Go on, say something. The fish is very nice. I don't think it's worked somehow. What about your second wish? That's not funny. That is not funny. Two down, one to go. Now then, Blarney. It's said to be mentioned in the Bible as Jacob's pillow, and that a prophet brought it back here for good luck. Well, that's probably not true, but if a stone was brought back, it was probably brought back by the Crusaders from the Holy Land, and it has brought the castle good luck, because the soldiers may have gone, but the tourists are here, big style, and now it really is making a profit. Now, Blarney, we use it in our language. We say, you're talking a load of Blarney. Well, we say it to you quite a lot. And this is how that expression came about. The King of Munster, the Lord of Blarney, was a supporter of Queen Elizabeth I, even though she was colonising here. And although he was a supporter, whenever she sent her envoys over for him to sign official documents, he entertained them rather well, and then they forgot to do the job. And she got more and more angry about it. And one day she cried out, Blarney, Blarney, what that man says he does not do. It's just more Blarney. And that's how it entered our language.